So, what happens when you get a Catholic and a Mormon together to discuss the sudden surge in faith based movies in Hollywood? Talk about it. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Zach, the Wretched Watchman, and I'm bringing you a little bit of news of what's going on when it comes to the convergence of the one world religion and how it's being influenced and constructed by the mystery religion that we see going on. And so this is something I've talked about a lot. I've discussed this a lot. It's a subject that I believe is extremely under discussed, not only in the church but also in the prophecy community. One of the main reasons why I think it's under discussed in the church is because the churches just are embracing it tenfold, embracing the mystery religion, bringing as much of the world and much of the convergence of different faiths and traditions and denominations into their churches as possible in order to increase numbers, to increase revenue, for whatever reason that they want to do it. I'm not going to sit here and put a blanket statement on that. But I think that's one of the reasons why it's under discussed there. I also think it's under discussed in the prophecy community because we can get so caught up in all of the extravagant events and news that are constantly going on right now. But it's also just a hard subject to even just admit to ourselves or want to dive into. Even though, in my opinion, when we look at the construction of the Antichrist beast system, those three pillars, the one world government, one world economy, and one world religion, the most dangerous and most important one that is leading the other two is the one world religion. And of course, that's the one that's under talked about. It's under discussed. And I think a lot of it just has to do with is we've been programmed in today's world. We don't want to offend people. We need to tolerate. We need to make sure that we're not causing division and all these types of things. But I think we lose track of where we should be separating. Biblical separation is something that we should absolutely hold on to, that Scripture is pretty serious about. Even going as far as to say that Satan is the uniter and God is the divider. But yet we've kind of changed that around because we just don't want to hurt feelings. We don't want to cause division and stuff like that. Oh, it's a secondary issue. It's not a main problem. But in reality, when it comes to this type of stuff, it really is a main problem because it's part of this mystery religion. That again, if you're around my channel, you hear me talk about it all the time. And so it's very important. And one of the main elements that's going on with that, it's deceptive, it's tricky. And unless you're really paying attention or know what's going on with this subject, this topic, is this idea of faith-based stuff. And so as Christians, as the church, as prophecy community, however you want to label yourself, the fact is whenever something faith-based, quote unquote faith-based, doesn't matter what faith it is really, unless it's an obvious false one, but anytime something faith-based pops up, everybody celebrates it. And I've talked about, what was it? Lauren had me on her channel, and I made reference to the Bonhoeffer movie. And Bonhoeffer is one of those quote unquote church heroes that is celebrated. And most people, when they hear that, most Christians, when they hear the name Bonhoeffer, oh yeah, what a great guy. He was such a devout Christian and all that stuff. But when you look into his theology, he believed some pretty horrendous, I would say heretical things. He believed that Genesis is a book of myths. Then he says that stuff doesn't happen. There's not enough historicity to prove that Jesus Christ was even real. He says, conversion is something that should not be celebrated and discussed publicly. He goes on to all this stuff. He doesn't believe in the virgin birth. And there's some stuff that I would even go to question his own salvation. Now, a lot of people read that one book that he put out, something discipleship, and everybody goes, see? But then when you read his other writings, including the Letters from Prison book, that nobody talks about, it goes to show that he really wasn't on track at all. But yet, because it's celebrated, or because their favorite pastor promoted the movie or quoted him in a sermon or one of those things, everybody gets so excited and they just jump on board without doing any due diligence or being a Berean and doing their own research on it. I didn't know anything about the guy until about 3 weeks ago. And then I spent about an hour just looking stuff up. And I found everything that I needed to know, that this is somebody that shouldn't be celebrated in the church. But we're at this time now because the world is so dark and so filled with nasty, disgusting things. Anything that has the tag faith on it, we jump onto it. And I think we need to be very cautious about that. Remember who our enemy is. Satan is very, very, very clever, and he will use deception in any way that he can. Just look at what happened with the politics. Is you create the left side so dark, sinful, and so wicked that when you introduce the exact same things that you need to happen into the right side, well, the Christians are automatically going to jump on with the lesser evil, even though they're voting for the exact same stuff. And so it's kind of the same thing with this, is where you make the world so dark and evil, you make Hollywood so disgusting that anytime somebody, I don't know, like Angel Studios or The Chosen or something comes along, then people just naturally jump on it. And it's like, hey, it's not this other stuff and it's better, so it must be okay. And I think that's something that we have to train ourselves to get out of. If we really want to wake up and see the deception that's going on, we have to train ourselves that just because it's not the other thing doesn't mean that it's good. And so with that all long thing that I just went into, let's go ahead and take a look at a discussion. Glenn Beck, everybody knows Glenn Beck, Blaze TV, had an actor on, Neal McDonough. And so if we go ahead and jump over here, he had him on for an interview regarding some of the movies. Now, this guy's an actor. Neal is an actor. He's in a lot of stuff, and he's an openly proclaimed Catholic. There's a lot of movies and roles that he won't take because of his Catholic faith, and so I commend him for that. I think that's great. You know, if you're in this industry and you're willing to have a spine to stand for your beliefs, whether they're wrong in the Catholic belief or not, if you still stand for morals, I think that's great. So I applaud him for that. So I have no qualms there. I think we need a lot more actors like that. But he is a devout Catholic, and he's one that enjoys the ecumenical side of it. He's done things with the Mormon Tabernacle when it comes to their productions. And he goes on in this interview regarding Angel Studios and what they're doing. But he was interviewed by Glenn Beck, and everybody knows Glenn Beck. A lot of people use him for a news source. Don't ever get your faith or eschatology from him, seeing that he is Mormon. So we got a Mormon and a Catholic here. But let's hear what they have to say regarding this subject of Hollywood Hollywood looking for faith-based movies. So let's see what we got going on here.
By going out and buying tickets to films like this, that's the message you're directly sending to Los Angeles.
Do you think they can?
I love that.
Do you think they can learn? Because I've talked to enough people where they really don't understand it, and it's not a malice thing or anything. They can try to relate Noah, and they have no idea why that doesn't connect.
Well, I was reading, they had the breakdown of all the studios of what they're looking for in this project, and never ever have I seen before of the 10 of them, 4 or 5 of them in the bottom said, oh, by the way, if you have something of faith, we're very interested this year. So something's.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just pause there for a second, because I think that's pretty interesting. So Glenn is going with the side of, do you think the Hollywood executives, the Hollywood studios, can learn? He talked about the Noah movie. If anybody's seen that, it's just absolutely abysmal Noah movie. But he's saying, do you think they can learn on how to actually adapt faith-based or religious-based films that will actually appeal to audiences? And then he talks about Noah, which was neither faithful to the faith, faithful to the story, or appealed to the audiences. And so Neal goes on to say, he's talking about, these 10 big studios, 8 of them are saying, if you have something faith-based, we're interested in hearing about it, which is interesting. And a lot of people would say, well, it has to do with money and stuff like that. I wouldn't say it has to do with anything with money, because there's been other movies coming out from like Angel Studios that does all the faith-based stuff, that they've had some bangers come out that made a whole bunch of movies, but then they had regular ones come out that didn't make anything. So it doesn't have to do with money. There's something else to this. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but let's hear what else they have to say.
Whether it's Angel Studios, whether it's the amazing Irwin brothers, whether it's Dallas Jenkins, whether it's the Kendricks, whomever it is who's going out there on the limb and telling stories of faith, so the whole family can go to a theater together, grab popcorn, grab a soda, hang back, watch a movie for 2 hours, then after have a discussion with your 8-year-old or your 80-year-old.
it's interesting. It's an interesting thing because he goes on to specifically talk about Dallas Jenkins and The Chosen and Angel Studios and these ones. I've warned about them. The Kendrick brothers is actually kind of an interesting one because I've been asked a couple times about the Kendrick brothers. If you don't know the Kendrick brothers, they did things like Facing the Giants and Fireproof and stuff like that. And I often get asked, what do you think about them? I enjoy a couple of their early on movies. Like I as cheesy as it is, I enjoy Facing the Giants. I think it's a good story. I think it represents how we should be acting pretty well. And I don't, from what I remember, it's been a while. I don't remember any inaccuracy when it comes to any theology in there. But what I have noticed is some of their later works, the movies that they're creating, they're allowing very questionable people to be involved with production, writing, and acting in these movies. And it seems they're starting to go off in the different direction. So like I enjoyed some of the earlier works of the Kendrick brothers. They seem to be going off in a direction that I just can't get behind. But then Dallas Jenkins and The Chosen, I've talked about him. He talks about his main goal with all this is to break down the walls of the different faiths and traditions and unite them all together. And he said that to Jonathan Rumi sitting in the Vatican when he said that. I've warned about Angel Studios and their connections to Mormons, Mormon-backed companies, and the people that they have on are from so many different faith beliefs and faiths and traditions and stuff like that, that they're just snatching all different types of beliefs and throwing them together. And he's talking about how Hollywood is looking for faith-based stuff. Why is that? I think a lot of it has to do with the times that we're in, these last days that we're in, where we're starting to see a much larger push, a much larger convergence of this mystery religion. We're starting to see the promotion of spiritualism. We're starting to see the promotion of different denominations coming together. We're starting to see uniting events, and we're starting to see this not only in just local arenas like we have been for a while, but now we're starting to see it on a much larger scale. Now, a lot of people might disagree with me on that. That's fine. From my observation, and this is honestly an area that I spend a lot of time observing and trying to see what's going on. It's not just here in the United States, but globally, there's been a much larger increase of people accepting spiritualism and ecumenical movements. And so when we have Hollywood, which is all about, visual and airwave stuff. We know who is the prince of the power of the airwaves. We can see, if we're paying attention, that we're in a convergence not only of spiritual ramifications, but a convergence of global ramifications when it comes to the construction of the Antichrist beast system being in the last days and coming up closer to. The world would call it the Great Reset. We would call it the Day of the Lord. And so if we're getting that much closer to the Day of the Lord, we're going to start seeing more and more convergence and acceptance of spiritual movements, just like we see the Abrahamic family house. And we see what's going on with that. We see the temple institution over in Israel. It's talking about creating, the next temple that they're going to put up is going to be the house of worship for all. And so we're starting to see more and more of the embracing, more and more of the convergence and the push of this. So when we see Hollywood like this, and again, I just find it fascinating that it's a conversation between a Mormon and a Catholic like this, which only proves the point even more. We are definitely seeing this as part of the mystery religion push of let's get faith-based stuff out there. But what faith, what tradition, what beliefs? And so we're going to continue to see more and more of faith things coming about, faith-based stuff coming about, faith-based news, spiritualism, all coming forward. But is it the right one? Again, we often talk about, there's many different Jesuses. Well, which Jesus are you talking about? And so in this time, like I started out with this whole thing, just because it's not the other thing, and this has faith slapped on it, this has Bible slapped on it, this has Jesus slapped on it, this has any of that slapped on it, doesn't mean that it's right and we should participate. I know there's a lot of people, I wish I could go to the movies, take my date out to the movies, take my spouse out to the movies, take the kids out to the movies. There's just nothing out there. But because there's a faith-based thing, there's my opportunity to do it. And now you're just playing into the hand of, what are you being fed? What's being introduced? What is this part of a bigger movement? Now, again, a lot of people look at me and go, dude, you're just taking this too far. We got to do something type of thing. I get it, but it's the same approach when it comes to music at the same time. Well, it's not the secular stuff. So who cares? I don't care where it comes from, or I don't know where it comes from. It doesn't matter. It's they talk about Jesus and we sing it in church and they play it on K-Love and it makes me all gives me the goosebumps and the warm and fuzzies and the tears and stuff like that. So it must be good because it's this other thing. And it's like, hold on. That's exactly what Satan wants you to do. We got to be much more careful in this time, specifically in this time. Again, Matthew 24, what does Jesus start out with saying? Do not be deceived. That doesn't mean, hey, don't be deceived by that obvious thing over there that looks sinful and evil and all that type of stuff. No, that means, hey, what's going on in your own personal bubble that might be deceiving you? And we got to be Bereans and we got to think about that a little bit more often. So that's what I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for joining me. And all I can say is we really, really have to be aware of what we're consuming, what we're listening to, what we're watching, what we're contributing to. Again, that's why I warn people, don't contribute to places like Angel Studios just because they're putting out movies that may fit what you like. They're putting out stuff that's really leading other people in the wrong direction. Same thing when it comes to music. Everybody calls these secondary issues. I think this is a limb of one of the biggest problems we've got going on when it comes to Satan building his Antichrist beast system. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. And I'll catch you guys next time. I'm Zach, the Rich Watchman. Peace out. Maranatha.